This tutorial illustrates creating a sales invoice by transferring job costs. Before continuing, you should review the Invoicing Jobs topic in Chapter 4. If you have not reviewed this topic, pause the tutorial now. This tutorial uses the Practice Aster Landscaping data file and demonstrates creating an invoice to Silver Homes by selecting job costs. Key points to remember. Job costs, such as labor materials, must be posted prior to selecting these costs to invoice. When creating the invoice, labor costs will be consolidated by activity and material costs will be marked up. When you transfer the costs to the invoice, you will see 3 cost category tabs. Time tickets store the labor hours assigned to the job. Expense tickets store miscellaneous charges such as travel. And finally, reimbursable expenses store the vendor bills for materials used on the job. One final point. Deleting a posted invoice will not release job costs for re-invoicing, so verify selections before saving. Let's now record the invoice. Before recording this sales invoice for Practice Aster Landscaping, the system date has been set to March 31, 2007, the date of the transaction. I then click Customer and Sales Center, click Sales Invoice, and select New Sales Invoice. This invoice is for Silver Homes, so I type S in the Customer ID field and then scroll down to select Silver Homes. I then verify the transaction date of March 31, 2007, and then click Apply Tickets Expenses. This action opened the Apply Tickets Reimbursable Expense window containing the 3 cost category tabs. Remember that the Time Tickets tab contains the labor hours that have been assigned to this job. You can change the sort on this list to activity item by date, to job by date. We will leave the sort at date. You can then scroll through and individually mark labor hours for billing by clicking the Use box on an item. However, there is a more efficient way for selecting a range of time tickets to bill, and that is performed by clicking the Use box on the window. This opens a window for entering selection criteria to select a range of tickets. I will choose Date Range, and then enter criteria that will select all time tickets falling on March 27, 2007 to March 31, 2007. After entering this criteria, I click OK, return to the Time Tickets window, and I can scroll down and find all the time tickets have been marked for billing. I will next choose to consolidate these time tickets when they are placed on the invoice. This is done by selecting to consolidate by activity item and will provide for a much cleaner invoice when sent to the customer. I next check for expenses on the Expense Tickets tab, and finding one item to be billed, I will click to select the Use box. Finally, I will check for expenses on the Reimbursable Expenses tab. I find 3 and individually click to select each item. I will not choose to consolidate expenses when they are placed onto the invoice. This way a customer can see detail on each of the expense items. Recall that reimbursable expenses are vendor bills that have been assigned to this job. Therefore, I will mark these bills up 54%. To do that, I click the Write Up icon on the window. I will write up all of the items, and I will choose to write them up by 54%. And this is done by clicking the percent option and entering 54.0. I click OK and return to the Apply Tickets Reimbursable Expenses window. I have now finished selecting the items to bill. Before clicking OK, I will verify my selections on each tab and then click OK. Upon returning to the invoice, I find that each expense is individually listed because I chose to not consolidate these items, and that all labor hours have been consolidated into one item with the description coming from the description on the activity. I will also check to make sure that a job has been assigned to each line item because this affects job costing. You will notice that when you consolidate cost, a job is not assigned. Therefore, I will click in the job field, type S to move down towards the job that I want to choose. I will then use the arrow key on my keyboard to scroll down and locate the Silver Landscaping folder. Click to open the folder. Scroll down again, locating the Installation folder. Click to open, scroll down again, and locate the Hardscape Labor Cost category. I then click to select this category and the job has been assigned. Before printing or saving this invoice, I will confirm my selections. Remember that once an invoice is saved, you cannot re-invoice these costs. If I should find a mistake, I can click Apply Tickets Expenses to reopen the selection window. I can also click Close and choose No to save this invoice. After making sure that my selections are correct, I can click Print to send this invoice to the printer. I can also click Preview to preview what the invoice will look like before I send it to the printer. Because this invoice has not been saved, clicking Print at this point will cause Peachtree to prompt to save the invoice. I can also bypass printing and save the invoice immediately. However, Peachtree will not assign an invoice number until the document has been printed. When Peachtree assigns invoice numbers, it does so sequentially. Therefore, your invoice numbers may not always agree with those illustrated in the text. This does not mean that your work is incorrect. It merely means that you have done things in a different order than the author. The important thing for you to compare with the text is that you have selected the correct customer and that your line items are entered correctly and your totals are correct. This concludes the tutorial on invoicing jobs.